So we're here today to talk about detoxing our minds. Now, typically when you hear the word let's detox or someone went to detox, what's the first thing that comes to our thoughts, right? Maybe they had a major drug addiction and they needed to kick the habit, so they go to a detox center. Oftentimes we talk about, man, I've been eating really unhealthy. I just need to cleanse my body. I need to cleanse my system. Maybe I need to go on a fast. So I need to detox my body. But rarely do we talk about detoxing our mind. And the first question that comes to my mind is, from what? What are we detoxing our minds from? As I've worked, with thousands of clients over the last 25 years, I have noticed over time that they had something in common. I'm going to include myself in that too, because this is kind of human nature. All of them, myself included, and I'm sure you two as listening, have an inner critic. And the inner critic can be soft-spoken, like a still small voice slowly undermining us, or it can be loud, like a megaphone just screaming down, our throats in a negative manner. So the way that I like to describe this, imagine if you were handed the keys to your destiny in the form of a car, a shiny brand new car, whatever car is your favorite car, a sporty convertible, an SUV, a big 2-ton truck, a minivan, it doesn't matter. And you're handed those keys, right? This is your destiny, and you're the driver. And the universe says to you, drive it well, live a good life, be happy, enjoy, right? So you're got your hands on the wheel and put it in gear, and you're driving down the highway of life, the highway of happiness, the highway of love, right? Well, here's what happens slowly at first. And this usually happens in our early years. The critic begins to whisper at first, you can't do that. You're not that good. And over time, you go from being the driver to going to the passenger seat. Now the inner critic takes over, starts driving your life, your car. And as that voice gets stronger, you get kicked back in the back seat. Now you're a backseat driver. And who pays attention to backseat drivers, right? They're kind of annoying. So the inner critic now has full control of your life and your destiny. And as the inner critic gains momentum and gains power, eventually you might even find yourself in the trunk, like tied up in like some kind of mafia movie, right? You're all like tied. You have no control over your life. This is not the life you designed. This is not the life you had hoped that you would live. And yet, you're in the back. You have no voice, right? And this critic pounds you. So what does the inner critic sound like? At first it could be just like almost you're not good enough. I grew up, I was a competitive swimmer, and I remember hearing that voice. I would be in the national championships, right? This is a big event, big deal, right? And I'd finish second. That voice little said, well, you could have won the gold had you tried a little harder. Now, is that a big deal? Does he take over my whole life by making that one simple comment? No. But cumulatively, over time, this begins to take over. And that voice gets louder and louder. It could be in the form of criticism that's really overt, like, you're so stupid. I mean, that's a classic one, You're so dumb. How could you do that? And the funny thing is, because we're human beings and we're imperfect, right? The inner critic feeds off our imperfection and our weaknesses. And it's so powerful, so clever. Because there's some truth to it. Yeah, I did finish second. I didn't win the gold medal, so that's true. But did I try my best, right? The positive side of my mind sort of said, well, this was a personal best. You swam as fast as you could, and somebody else happened to be a little faster than you and finished first. But you also beat all the other swimmers. I mean, second is not the worst place in the world, is it, in a national championship? But no, that inner critic only focuses what you didn't do, right? The voice could also be, physical appearance. You're so ugly, you're so fat, you're so you're no good. And when these happen time after time after time, your self-esteem begins to suffer. And then your mind becomes toxic, right? So let me give you an example of how it applied in my life. When I was in high school, and started my senior year in high school, I grew up in Southern California. I had a dream school. Like, I dreamt of going to the school, and that was UCLA. That was like 15-minute drive from my house. And my older brother was going there already. I had a great uncle who was like a second dad to me that had graduated, way back in time from UCLA. The first, Gurguris, actually the first person in my entire family to go to college and graduate. So he's kind of like my role model. Anyway, I didn't have the best grades. I came here, English was my second language. I tried my best, but I didn't have great grades. So the inner critic started working on me. And so I applied to a stage school that I was pretty sure between that and my SAT scores I could get in, and I did get in. But I didn't apply to UCLA. You know why? Because the inner critic kept working on me. Oh, don't apply there. You're never going to make it. You'll be humiliated. Your brother goes there. You're not going to. So you know what? I didn't apply there. Even though this was my dream. I wanted to go there since I came to America, basically. This was like... So fast forward now. I've already been accepted to this other university, a state school, not a bad school, but not a great school either. And that same uncle that had graduated from there years ago, one day sat me down and said, "Hey, have you heard from UCLA yet? What's the news? Are you in?" And my face turned red and I was so embarrassed. And I'm like, "Well, actually, uncle, I didn't even apply." And he got furious. He goes, "What do you mean you didn't apply? I thought this was your dream." And I was so embarrassed because I had to confront my inner critic. I said, "You know what? I don't think I can get in." He goes, "Nonsense, that's ridiculous. I can guarantee you one thing, if you don't apply, you're never going to get in," which is kind of true, actually. So he said, "You need to apply right now." And this was way late. I mean, we were getting back with the results of, schools sending in their approval or disapproval, basically. So I applied. He takes me by the hand like a little kid. I'm almost like 18 years old. He goes, "Let's go." And we go to UCLA. This is a true story. We go to UCLA. We meet with the dean of admissions. He kind of explains that story, and I was like kind of embarrassed. And the dean goes, "Well, let me see your grades. And you have a history here. You have a brother that goes here. You have an uncle. You have, your whole family." And he says, "Look, we will accept you, but you have to take these couple of courses to, become a little stronger in a couple of areas." It was science, actually, which was not my strength by any means. So I got in, and I went there for 4 years, and I graduated, and I loved my experience. It was great. And eventually I went and got my PhD in psychology, and the rest is history. But what was the point? The point is that had I listened to the inner critic, the course of my life would have been very, very different. And I can't even claim credit for overcoming that. It was my uncle that said, "Nonsense, what are you talking about? If you don't try something, you're never going to succeed," right? And that became a huge life lesson, to confront the inner critic. So now, let's go back to our analogy. Now we're back in the trunk, and we have no control over our life. Like, we wouldn't even know where we're going. How do we get back at least to the back seat? At least we have some visual of where our life is going. And this is the way that it happens. When you hear that criticism, "You're not good enough. That was so stupid. Oh, you're so dumb." Whatever the criticism is, "You can't do that. Don't even try," basically, right? I imagine myself being kind of like a judge, like wearing this black robe, right, with a gavel. And every time I hear that inner voice, I'm like, pound. I pound the gavel, I'm like, "Overruled." Just like a judge would say, right? "You're overruled." And every time you say you're overruled, you begin to regain back some of your self-esteem, some of your self-worth, some of your self-respect. So now we're back in the back seat. So what's the next step? Well, the next step is to continue to confront that inner critic. Every time that voice comes up, bam, overruled. Now eventually I move into the passenger seat. Well, I'm still not in control of my life, but at least I can see where it's going. I have a more clear vision. And now comes the big battle. And this is the final battle. And that's the battle between the passenger and the driver. Because the inner critic is embedded, right? The inner critic lives basically in our mind and fills it full of toxins and full of negativity and self-doubt and shame and all the negative attributes that come with an inner critic, right? So now, every time we overrule, we get closer and closer to that steering wheel. And at some point, we're like 50-50, right? Your inner critic fights to control, and inner critic never lets go voluntarily. It never walks away voluntarily. We have to retake control of our lives. And we as passengers grab the steering wheel and go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that could take weeks, that could take even months, where sometimes we fall prey to the inner critic and he holds onto the wheel. And sometimes as we try to regain the control of our lives and be more mindful in our decisions and more loving to ourselves and more kind even when we make mistakes, because that's the thing. Remember, he feeds off mistakes. He feeds off our weaknesses, this critic, right? And at some point we begin to take control. And last but not least, we kick him out the door. We open the driver's door and we just kick him out, and then we take control of our life, of our destiny. But we need to be careful. Don't ever think that the inner critic, he sneaks, it's like, those cartoon movies. He gets right back, maybe in the trunk, and then slowly makes his way back into the car because he still wants to control our destiny. So the key for us is to confront that negative voice, to confront it at all costs. It's a battle for our mind because, other people can criticize us, but I can guarantee you nobody can be more critical about me than me in my own head, right? And we know that. We are our worst enemy. So if we want to cleanse our mind, we have to confront, we have to overrule, we have to challenge those patterns. And some of those patterns have been with us for such a long time that we almost take it for granted. I hear people, in their 60s and 70s say, "Oh, I'm so dumb, I'm so stupid." And sometimes I've asked them, I said, "When did you first have that thought?" "Oh, when I was 5 years old and my stepdad said that to me." "Oh, you're such an idiot." And it got stuck, and they believed it because they were little kids, and they internalized it. So now they've lived for decades thinking, "Oh, I must be so dumb because somebody told me that many, many years ago, and I bought it." Well, I'm telling you right now, this is our chance to fight back. I don't buy it. We're not stupid. We're very capable to accomplish great things in life, but we have to cleanse our mind from all that toxicity, basically, just like we would do with our bodies, right? So my challenge to you is to, number one, take a personal assessment. If you're driving the car, if you're in control of your life, more power to you. Hang on for dear life. If you're in the passenger seat, well, you're not that far off, but you still have to fight. If you're in the back seat, somebody else is driving your destiny in your car. And if you're in the trunk, well, forget about it. We have to really fight to just get back to have some kind of vision, right? So the thought will come, and we have a choice. I buy it, like I've done in the past, or I don't really buy that. That's not really true. And that's where the gavel comes in, overruled. Next. Now, how many times do you do that per day? I can tell you, sometimes it's multiple times per hour where those negative thoughts come. You can't do that. You're not good enough. Don't even try. Like anything that keeps us from fulfilling our destiny. But the more we confront, and the more we use the gavel, and the more we overcome that voice, and basically the voice is saying, "I choose not to believe you. I don't think you're telling the truth, actually." Right? And day by day, sometimes hour by hour, week by week, we become stronger and stronger, and we start feeling better about ourselves. In spite of our imperfections, that doesn't mean that we're going to become perfect. That's not what I'm saying, because we're still human beings. We're still going to make mistakes. We still have weaknesses. What I'm saying is that I need to cleanse my mind. So take an assessment, figure out where you're at, kind of, and then go into action and start confronting daily, hourly, weekly, monthly, this inner critic, until you feel like, man, I'm in control of my life again. I'm in control of my destiny. I like where I'm going. I'm excited about the future. I'm happier. I have more joy in my life, more love in my life, right? So those are the things that we need to do in order to overcome this inner critic. Don't feel bad if you're in the trunk. I'm telling you, we've all been there at some point or another in our lives. We just don't want to stay there. And the backseat driver, that's not very good either. Passenger, it's better because we're closer. We can actually start seeing where we're going. But I'm still not in control of my life, right? So I don't want to be a passenger where somebody else is driving my destiny. I want to be in control of my destiny. And sometimes we can do that easier than others. I get that this isn't an easy thing to do sometimes, because a lot of those thoughts are embedded. They've been with us for a long time. But today is the day. I'm telling you right now, start right now. And I want you to actually look forward to the first negative thought you have about yourself, like almost like you can't wait to use that gavel and bash him on the head, basically, right? So look forward because the more you pay attention to it, the more you'll hear the inner critic. That's the funny thing. My people say, well, I don't have an inner critic. Oh, really? Pay attention next time and you'll see. Next time you make a mistake, you spill milk, whatever. It could be something small, it could be something huge. That critic exists. We all have it. But it doesn't have to run our lives. So thank you for your time. I'm excited to hear your feedback. I want to hear success stories too, because we can help one another that way. And remember, this is how to detox our minds, defeat the inner critic, and it starts right now.